Welcome back, dear listeners, to the Mindful Journey podcast. And today's conversation, it's for anyone who feels like something in their life is quietly falling apart. Even if on the outside it still looks successful, it is great, stable, it's meaningful. Burnout, listeners, it often gets framed as exhaustion, which is fixable. It can be fixed with better habits or rest or a quick break. And then grief, it gets framed as something that follows a loss we can name. Life transitions, often treated like milestones we should move through quickly and gracefully. But here's a question. What if burnout is actually a signal that your inner world and outer life are no longer aligned? What if grief is not just about what ended, but about who you can no longer be? And what if transitions are not problems to solve, but thresholds that ask something uncomfortable of us? Let me tell you, listeners, my guest today sits deeply in those questions. Sharon Ann Rose, a ceremonialist, author, shamanic priestess, who has spent over 25 years guiding women through moments when everything they build begins to crumble, when burnout becomes unbearable, and when a spiritual longing emerges without clear language. She's the author of Faces of the Mother, and her work draws from feminine wisdom traditions, archetypal psychology, ritual, and lived experience. She speaks directly to women who are outgrowing old identities, navigating empty nest years, spiritual crisis, or a sense that life is asking for a deeper truth. So, listeners, get into this conversation because Sharon's work, it does not rush transformation. It does not bypass grief. It does not offer easy answers, but it invites coherence, alignment, and listening, even when the listening is uncomfortable. So, Sharon, welcome to the Mindful Journey, and I'm really, really honored to have you here with us.
Oh, thank you so much, Sana. You've already got me crying. I'm like, wow, wow, that's so moving.
Yeah. These are such important questions, Sharon. I mean, um before even maybe like few years back I never even knew about that there's something called as burnout, to be honest. Like, because there were no conversations around it. There was no conversation around identity, because kind of there's a kind of a stereotype or a misconception that these are all selfish thing. You shouldn't always think about yourself, and especially for a woman, I think it's more and more relevant right now to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and even as, I'm here, I'm always learning something more and deeper, especially about the experience of a female body in these times, and also any human being. I don't think we can look out at the world right now and not look at the grief that's just overwhelming in people's hearts and the sadness in their eyes. And that doesn't take away, because I think it's really important when we enter a threshold that for many feels heavy and dark and dense, to understand these aspects and conversations are not to override the beauty and the joy and the potential and the evolutionary change that's underway. Actually, these aspects of burnout and exhaustion and grief and being incredibly dissatisfied, they partner quite well and they amplify the joy. They amplify a sense of true fulfillment, not false fulfillment. And they even like expand and deepen our sense of happiness and love and connection and ability to start living a life we actually are proud of, instead of just living life without any kind of conscious anchor and sense of purpose. So I want to just begin the conversation there to say, fear not, though it can feel a little treacherous at times, looking at these heavier, sadder, exhausted parts of us, it is so incredibly I don't want to override. I don't want to just say uplifting because that, again, isn't quite the word. It's like it gives us more space to truly show up as human beings who care and love and do incredible things to make this world a better place.
Hmm. True. True. Let's start with burnout, Sharon, because many people, even I used to think that it is about doing too much. But then in your work, burnout often shows up when someone is doing exactly what they were supposed to do. Maybe they are in a fulfilling career, maybe they are caregiver, spiritual practices, self work. From your perspective, what is burnout? What exactly it is trying to say? Like really asking us to pay attention to.
Yeah, beautiful.
Mm.
So, burnout, the word itself tells us everything. It means the fire inside of us, that deep essence of ourselves that literally ignites who we are and our gifts in the world has literally almost, because if it was truly out, we wouldn't still be going. So, burnout means we've literally burned out that fire. And that fire is so precious. It's whatever your sense of universal wisdom, intelligence, God, creator, source, goddess is, that's what we were given by the source of life, by the essence. And it simply means, oh, wow, it's really getting low right now, sweetie. It's practically been turned into an ember that's almost been snuffed out. And so it doesn't mean like we're doing everything wrong and we're not in the right career or the right relationship and we have to overhaul everything. What I've discovered actually is it just means turn back into what does fill you up with a sense of warmth and inspiration, what does cause you to feel more energized. And also we can't but not bring in those words of alignment and coherence and harmony, because it also means that like you've just really gone far away from your fire, the fire that keeps you the hearth warm, which means it's keeping the heart of you warm, and you've gotten really far away. And so it's a return to that and tending those flames and learning also that you don't have to have them be scorching hot and reaching to the heights. There's actually, especially for a woman, especially as she starts to mature and wisen into what she really loves in life, she learns how to kind of steady those flames. So they're not too high, they're not too low, they're just right at this sustained place so she can show up for her career and give it her all without it going into the danger zone. Or she also doesn't have to have it burn her by literally getting so big that she's running on adrenaline and cortisol, where she's in a much more natural, delighted place to really give what she's here to give with her whole heart and soul and not be also burnt by her own fire.
Hmm. I really find it connecting, like burned by her and fire as well, because it's like a double-edged sword. I mean, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because often right now, especially in the past decade, I've been in the field of feminine wisdom for many decades. And so I've seen a lot, and I've also lived a lot within that. And when I was more in my 20s and 30s, even into the beginning of my 40s, there was so much about the rise of women. But I also wanted to say the rise of that feminine fire, which is inside of everybody, irrelevant of what you term your gender. And so that is really special. And also, women got burned. Like you said, it's this double edged sword. They used way too much fire. And one might think that's impossible, but it's actually not. We can work so hard and kind of overextend that fire, so much so that we forget if we like put it all externally and outward, we're also still doing that same burnout. It's just in a different um, avenues in a different way. We either are, misaligned and not doing what we love, or we're doing what we love and we're just like over giving and overextending the fire and not keeping the sacred essential embers going inside of ourselves. So it's an art form. It's a real balance.
It is. It is. It is. And I I I would also like to now bring in, grief, because you speak often about grief that does not have a clear event attached to it. Maybe not the death of a loved one, but then this, grief of losing your identity, becoming, uh, someone else. I mean, absolutely kind of losing the sense. That I'm getting lost. So, how do you understand, Sharon, grief in times of life transition, especially for women who are outgrowing roles they once like chose willingly?
Yes. Yeah, so grief goes hand in hand with change. And certainly, in the culture and society I was brought up in the United States, we don't talk a lot about change. We don't have a framework for healthy change. And so when that identity, when that career that we're, trekking along with and it's going so well suddenly doesn't feel good anymore because that inner state of us is beginning to say, "Oh, there's more to you. There's more that this universe and life and your own heart and soul want from you." And we don't actually know what to do with that because suddenly, in our makeup and in our brain, we think we're losing something instead of realizing we're, getting vaster and wider and we're moving more towards a more holistic and whole sense of ourselves, which means we're going to experience many different, if we're using the example of career, many different career paths because we want to use different aspects of who we are. And that also can apply to relationships and our own self identity. We're going to have many, many, many deaths in our lifetime. And that's when we're literally saying, not goodbye in the sense that it's going away forever, more goodbye of like, oh, you're not going to be the leader of me anymore. You're going to now kind of go to the side while a different aspect of myself and my soul and my gifts comes to the forefront. And those things can't just like happen overnight. They happen slowly, just like nature, just like trees grow. It takes seasons. You have to go through seasons of this and really give thanks for the qualities or the aspect of your personality or the roles that you identified with because now you're moving into another, season of your life or another big growth of the tree type of thing. And it's really important to honor what you came from and to know it's not being tossed out. It's again just being placed more over to the side or the back while a different part of you is here to shine. And I think, there's so much I do with grief rituals, and I've been doing them for myself, but also in my work for decades. And I think it's so important. Many cultures, especially more native cultures, indigenous communities, have grief rituals that they do seasonally and annually, and they do with the community because we're being only half hearted if we don't honor that it does hurt when we say goodbye to the woman we used to be. And we can't actually fully step into this next, version of ourselves until we acknowledge, what that previous version represented to us. And it's the same, for example, with relationships. And I see so many people not fully give grief your own healthy attention to say, wow, a lot of times you have people parting ways in not the best way. They're pretty angry at each other and angry at themselves. But if they were able to have literally a moment of grief together to realize there was really beautiful things in what they shared, they would divorce, separate, part ways very differently. They'd be honoring, what came before and realize it just doesn't fit anymore. It's now, the relationship or each person in it is being asked to grow a bit differently.
Hmm. I think it's a beautiful way to think about grief, because we intrinsically, internally, we do not want to face that. We would just want to, and like, vaguely, that you will just have to move on. These are phases. You need to move on, or else life must go on. That's what we hear. And as you give examples of relationships, or um they can um they hold a very important place in our lives, whether it's a professional or personal. But um there are definitely solutions out there, definitely, and I really find it more beautiful because you mentioned about how um native, indigenous tribes, communities, they have their own way of sometimes celebrating grief or honoring, whether it's about death or parting ways, or kind of this homecoming feeling. So I think um, we definitely need support. We definitely need connect as well, because I don't think that there is a solution in isolation.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And, there is this way, again, especially I'm going to refer to my culture here in the United States, even on the path of mental health, the healing, transformation, progress, personal growth, it's been very independent. It's as if there was this thought that we could change all on our own and that that's all we needed to do. And the truth is, like you're sharing, that is a very isolated um, idea because we're not living here all by ourselves. If we open our eyes, which, not everybody does every day, but if we really open our eyes, for me, I'm even just doing it right now, and I have all these incredible trees out my window from my
Oh,
office, and they're like all snug up next to each other. They're the kind of very tall. They're called arborvitae, and so they're quite narrow trees, and you wouldn't even be able to see distinctly that there's literally, maybe 50 of them. At times it looks like they're all one. And I think we need to understand that that is the way we grow. It's the way we're born, and it's the way we're going to die. And we can either choose to harmonize and align with that more, which would be so much healthier for all human beings and the entire planet, all species, the environment, and the past and the future. Because when we continue, just keep thinking we grow on our own, we're doing something quite destructive to the true natural way that, grief is here to actually help us heal and come closer together and to realize how precious this one life is. It is so precious. And how could you not
mm,
like fall to your knees weeping because it's both the heartbreak of it, but also the beauty of it and what we're going to grow together.
mm, true. Um, and before we wrap up, this word, especially inner coherence. I mean, you use the language of inner coherence and alignment, and then these words, they sound calm, but then the process of finding them, I feel it can be very deeply disruptive. And that feeling itself, may sometimes cause like this anxiety. Oh my goodness, now this needs a huge change. What I'm gonna do? What if I fail? Like, what does inner coherence actually require from someone whose outer life, it is still going well, it's functioning well, enough?
Yeah. Mm. So insightful the way that you phrased that. Thank you. Yeah, inner coherence, like you said, it's a bit of a dichotomy and it can be quite like a personal rupture almost when we really turn towards, okay, my life is going smoothly. And also, when we speak about isolation versus community, your life might be going quite smoothly, but then if you open your eyes and look around you, there are so many and so much harm and suffering and need. And so that when we start to turn inward, we realize we actually aren't at peace. And I don't want to say we can't be at peace until all are at peace. That's not quite what I mean. We can find inner peace. And that's why we must, because the more that each of us finds inner peace and shares that, the more then that those who are suffering feel that. And so when we turn inward, we first hit that first kind of absolute rupture. And, we just start dismantling everything because then we have to ask ourselves all those very deep, honest questions. Am I really at peace? Am I really happy? Am I really fulfilled? And not from like this individual little I of like, do I really like what I'm doing? It's more that deep of, I was given this fire, like we talked about, by a creative intelligence. Am I really using it wisely to better myself, the journey of my own soul and my heart commitments, and the commitment I made to this collective communal reality? And that's where we can't but not start asking all the hard questions. And then we go through those phases of it's can be really haggard, and with support and help and like podcasts like this and conversations, we realize, we are not alone. Everyone is doing this on some level right now, and it's important work. And that helps us find that inner coherence where we really do feel like we are aligned with that fire that creation gave us.
Yeah, yeah. And Shan, is there a risk that, focusing on inner alignment, it can lead people to dismantle their lives too quickly, especially when they're, emotionally raw, or they're just tired, or they're burned out. Or maybe, especially for women, they may feel like, if I bring disruption or change in my own life, then what would people think about me? What would kind of, expectation they would have? Because they think that, because we tend to be people pleasers, or, say yes to everything. So what's your thought about it?
Yeah, the first part of what you said, I want to speak to first. And that's like what, once we start going internally with that real deep yearning and honest seeking of inner coherence, inner harmony, inner peace, we can feel desperate at times because it can get pretty uncomfortable because we have to first learn to be the ones to hold that, you know, non-inner peace, the thing that is not at rest and coherent in us with that love. We have to be the ones to hold that. And so at first we feel very desperate. And so, yes, in answer to that question, we can move way too quickly, and that's when I can't bring in nature's example enough. It's really important to look to nature because that's what we are. We are natural. Human beings are natural. And so we can turn to anything as an example. We can turn to the life of our favorite animal or species. We can turn to the life of a tree or a flower and really watch it and really ask it to guide us. And though when it hurts, it's really hard not to go fast. That's when we can draw upon all that's going to hold us with kindness and love. And we can learn to do that for ourselves so we can go at a pace that's more natural and regulated and gentle, compassionate and kind for our own selves and our growth. And then the piece you spoke about pleasing, that can also come from that same kind of desperate energy where, especially I know this, I'm such a pleaser. And there's those moments where we're really hitting old wounds of, if I don't do what this person wants, I'm going to be abandoned. I won't be loved. I won't be supported. I won't be helped, on and on and on. It literally becomes a lifeline. So there is desperation with that too. And so again, that same wisdom of we know it doesn't work. We know we can't keep, dismantling and disseminating the beauty we have inside to try to please everybody. We have to grow from the wisdom and the nutrition and the seed that we hold inside of us. And that's going to require a really deep slowing down so we can actually feel, hear, and sense this inner guidance and the inner wisdom from within us, that inner coherence to show us how to show up and bravely say no when we need to say no, bravely say yes when we really need to say yes, and bravely say, it's like, it actually doesn't matter what others think of me. I have to, like, really want to honor myself. And deep down in this inside of every human being and everything on earth, I really do believe, we are here to care for and about each other. And that comes from caring deeply for ourselves.
Beautiful, beautiful. I mean, uh, as a mother, people would think, or maybe a stay-at-home mother, that you are staying at home. You do not need to care about financial stuff. You are just staying at home and just managing everything internally. But as a mother, maybe you have raised you have raised kids, you have managed everything. There are so many conversations right now going on between parenting and managing or running a business, entrepreneurship. As a daughter, maybe you are now dealing with caregiving. You're also trying to kind of create your own identity and also support your parents. Maybe as a daughter-in-law, you're trying to tackle that transition from being a daughter to daughter-in-law, and now um, creating relationships, newer relationships. Maybe you are navigating so many challenges up there. It's a myriad of transitions, maybe transitions of identities, losing relationships, or maybe, yeah, it's what what.
Yeah, there's so much, isn't there, once we start to look and, for your example of someone who hasn't been potentially like out in the world doing work at the level of what's going on in the external environment and really deep in that sacred hearth of raising, family, children, and all that comes with that. I'm so grateful you really acknowledge, like, how much a mother manages, and the thing is that, like, deep inner hearth, inner home work, inner family work really is the exact mirror of what is going on in the outer world, and yet nobody acknowledges that it all comes from the mother. And when a woman who is in that role at this season of her life, when she can hold that and really realize like the entire world functions because it came from a mother, and she can just hold herself with that level of esteem, she'll really be able to, carry her self-worth and self-identity differently, and also to realize most of the outer world and at the corporate level, etcetera, is so, and I'm just still to this day, I get so teared up over this, so far removed from the actual literal essence of the mother fire, it's so removed from it. And so if she can just walk with this knowing, like, no, she really holds a regal wisdom because she is there tending like that not just her own inner harmony, but that first kind of circle, that concentric circle that moves out of every human being. She's, tending her inner fire and alignment and coherence, and also then her children's and her families and the home, and then on and on. And so she's really emanating and exemplifying really the way that all those systems and what we see externalized so deeply, the governments, the educational systems, the medical systems, with, if they could learn from her, they would be in a much different place. And so yeah, it behooves a mother to just walk with that inner knowing and that inner celebration of how much wisdom she is walking with and being given to do that role.
Absolutely. No doubt. No doubt. Beautiful, beautiful. So Sharon, before we wrap up, if listeners they would like to further connect with you, and also they would like to explore faces of the mother, and maybe share their thoughts about after this conversation with you, what would be the best way?
Beautiful. I would be so delighted to connect with your listeners. I really hold relationships, direct personal relationships as the fabric of what creates a healthy society. So please do reach out to me. You'll find me online at several different social media platforms at Sharon Ann Rose. My website is also of the same name, www.sharonannrose.com. And on there, there's places where you can find a form to reach out to me personally and directly. You'll find me on YouTube and also um, to access my book. My book, Faces of the Mother, is relaunching this February of 2026. So you'll find that in all the beautiful places where books can be found on Amazon and elsewhere. So I can't wait to hear about what you think of my work and Faces of the Mother and this conversation. I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, that's really, really great. And listeners, what I'll do is I'll have all the links, all the details shared by Sharon today in this episode with you, mentioned in the show notes. So just refer to them along with this episode. And I feel like, listeners, this reminder that burnout, grief, and transition, they're not signs that something has gone wrong. I believe they may be signs that something deeper is asking for honesty, coherence, and care. So, any one of you, if you are in a season where you feel um, not connected or disoriented, maybe tired of holding everything together, or you are unsure who you are becoming, I hope that this conversation, the insights shared by Sharon, offered language, permission, and gentleness. So thank you so much, Sharon. This was really, really such a lovely, lovely, beautiful conversation.
Well, thank you, Sana. It's really an honor to be here. And I really appreciate the way that you've held this topic with such care and respect.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And to all the listeners out there, thank you for being here on the mindful journey. If this episode resonated, take a moment to sit with what surfaced rather than a rushing past it. Until next time, take care of your inner world with the same devotion you give your outer life. Thank you.